Following Molly Kingston, there were Anne Curtis and Lynette Oppas, who went on to become Victoria's second woman QC in 1984 and the first woman judge at the County Court of Victoria. In 1968, Paulette Parkinson was the 10th woman to become a Victorian bar member, a lonely experience as she was to discover.
Women primarily did matrimonial relations, as it was in those days. And there was Joan Rosenove, I knew was at the bar, and there was Molly Kingston, and then there was Reg Pitcher. And the firm that I worked for briefed Reg, and he agreed to take me on as his pupil. And so I was thrilled to bits because, in my ignorance, I thought, the matrimonial causes briefs would all come flowing in my direction. Well, of course, that's quite wrong. Nobody knew me, and bless Jack Hyland, he managed to get briefs, and I had very interesting briefs. But Reg Pitcher, with all due respect to him, had never had a pupil before, didn't know what to do, and didn't help one iota. Oh, it'll be all right, he said, just do what you think's right. Well, that is very intimidating when you get confronted with a, believe it or not, Supreme Court brief, even though it's only an adjournment.
And that would have placed a great deal of stress on you too, because I suppose the ultimate thing is to feel on top of your brief, isn't it?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I have to admit that after 2.5 years or so, I ended up having an anxiety state, I think, as the good doctor put it. Molly Kingston was there, but she was just so far above me that I didn't feel that I could wander off and discuss sort of any matters with her. Lynette Oppas had gone off to Papua New Guinea, so she wasn't there, and it was just Molly and me. If I was given a brief, and I did everything from what we used to call crash and bash in those days, that was motor car accidents, and I did quite a few maintenance. I also became an expert in the imprisonment of fraudulent debtors for the Cambridge Credit Company. That was the most awful thing I've ever done in my whole life, which was trying to imprison these poor, impoverished people. It was awful.
If there'd been, a Women Barristers Association, would that have made a difference in your decision to perhaps stay at the bar?
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. It would have for somebody to understand what it was like, because you're a woman, you couldn't let your defences down. You couldn't let them see that you didn't know or you weren't quite sure. You just had to put on a brave front and just go ahead and do it.
You used to be addressed as Bisley Mrs.
That's right. On the brief it was Bisley in brackets Mrs. And so I was always known as Bisley Mrs. And I always signed Paulette Bisley, so they knew I was female.
These days, of course, they offer things like a reader's course. Oh. And would that have made a big difference to you?
Oh, enormous difference, because I didn't, you come fresh out of law school, and I went to work down in the common law section, so I learned a little bit about what was going on, but absolutely nothing about presenting a case or pleadings or... Oh, look, I would have been so grateful. I think that's the best thing that the bar could ever do, is to offer advice and nurturing your budding lawyers.
Rowena Armstrong and Jan Wade signed the bar roll in the early 1970s. Both were parliamentary counsel before coming to the bar, and both would return to that career while remaining bar members. In 1992, Jan Wade became the first woman Attorney-General in Victoria.
Parliamentary counsel in England had always been regarded as part of the bar, and that tradition carried on in Australia, and John Fenimore was quite keen for his staff, the lawyers on staff, to sign the bar roll. And so I signed the bar roll. And then subsequently, I think again, John Fenimore wanted us to get a better understanding of the legal system, or the best possible understanding, perhaps not, of the way the legal system worked, And so he persuaded the Justice Department to give us leave to go to the bar, paid leave. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go. And so I approached John D. Phillips and asked him if I could read with him, and he agreed to that. So I spent, I think, 6 months at the bar at that stage reading. At that stage you were allowed to take briefs virtually straight away. So I got quite a number of briefs from people who knew me, briefs to do opinions. I got work in the Magistrates' Court, a lot of women seeking maintenance from their husbands. And I can recall the first one of those, I was very nervous about it, and Ken Hayne, who was in chambers nearby, gave me a sort of word for word what I had to say in order to succeed in my first application. So I have a great deal of gratitude to Ken for that. But I think what caused me to go back to the Parliamentary Counsel's office, although there wouldn't have been a problem if I'd gone to the bar with the what was in the Crown Law Department, was this liking I have for creative law. It's why I also decided on the Parliamentary Counsel's office instead of being a tutor at Monash University. I probably would have stayed there for the rest of my career had not the corporate affairs job come up. I could see that I only had a 50% chance of becoming the Chief Parliamentary Counsel because Rowena Armstrong also had a claim to that position when John Fenimore eventually retired, so I decided to make the jump and applied for the job I was asked to apply for the job of Commissioner for Corporate Affairs. This was, of course, before the takeover of corporate affairs by the Commonwealth. It was quite a large office, 300 or 400 people. Of the professional staff, of which there were quite a large number of accountants and a small legal office, all those people, with one exception, were men. There was one accountant who was a woman. All my deputies that had applied for the job, 3 deputies, one of them locked the door between my office and his and didn't really speak to me for a while after I got there. One of them, every time I gave him something, asked him to do something, he'd write on it, "If you're so clever, do it yourself."
You had to put up with that from people who were supposed to work for you.
That's right, yes.